Hi guys, how are you all today morning? Good morning. Today is 6th July 2023. My name is TSV Raghavan and I live in Chennai, Tamil Nadu, India. This is my spiritual vlog on YouTube. Haribol TRSV Nectar NECTAR Nectar. In this particular vlog, in all my previous videos, we have been discussing about the knowledge and information that we have gleaned through the study of spiritual books, scriptures, contemplation on the material universe, and meditation on the spiritual universe. This particular video in the vlog is no exception to that rule. In fact, it is a mere continuation of what we have been doing in all my previous videos. Kindly subscribe to this vlog and press the bell icon so that I may keep reminding you of all my previous videos. So let us continue with the video of today. Today we shall talk about one of the most important elements that constitute the complete material body of a particular human living entity. We all know by now that there are 5 elements that make up for the complete human material body in this world. We also know that these layers of material body are wrapped around the super soul, the spirit soul of a human living entity when that spirit soul gets in touch with the material world. When it does so, this material world, to escape the irritation by that touch, wraps up this spirit soul with 4 layers of material body. Once it is done, then starts the endless cycle of birth and death for that spirit soul. Initially, it was just a spirit spark from the spiritual whole. Once it got attracted to this material world, it slowly began transforming into a spirit soul. And once it already gets in touch with the material world and is wrapped up by these 4 layers of material body, the same spirit soul, the spirit spark, which had by now become a spirit soul, turns into what is known as a human living entity. We all who are in this material world, who have been born as human beings, are known in the spiritual world as human living entities. As I mentioned before, there are four layers of material body that wrap up a spirit soul to make it a human living entity. These four layers are as follows. The first layer is called causal intelligence. The second is known as astral mind of emotions and feelings. The third is called etheric body of senses. And the fourth and last is known as gross body. Every living entity in this material world, whether human or not, is identified by his or her gross body. These four layers are made up of five elements. They are five material elements. The first, causal intelligence, the second, astral mind, and the third, etheric senses, are all three very subtle layers, and these are made up of an element known as ether. The gross body, in turn, is made up of four more gross materials which are known as air, fire, water, and earth. These four are directly or indirectly an extension of the first element called ether. From ether, which made up the three subtle bodies, emanates another element for this gross body, and this element is known as air. The second element in the gross body, called fire, emanates from this same air. The third element, water, in itself emanates from the second element called fire. And the fourth element, earth, emanates from the third element known as water. Today, we are going to talk in detail about the first element in the gross body, which is actually the second element in the complete body. We all know that the first element, ether, made the subtle bodies of etheric senses, astral mind, and causal intelligence. But this air is a part of the gross body. Yes, this gross body is, though made up of four gross elements, controlled through a tissue called brain at the cranium of a gross body. This brain acts as a receiver of vibrations from the living entity's three subtle bodies, and then, according to its own development and evolvement, passes the treated transmission into the gross body. As for example, this tissue of called brain is present in every human living entity. However, the evolvement of that human living entity is the basis for the reactions and actions of that brain. The brain of a carpenter, a blacksmith, a goldsmith, a soldier, a teacher, a lecturer, a professor, an intellectual, a scientist, a librarian, a monk, a rishi, maharishi, saint, or heretic are different, though all of these people have the same quality of tissue of the brain. This is because of the evolvement of that particular person and his or her capacity and capability to receive the transmission of vibrations from the three subtle bodies and the capacity and capability to process it according to its whims and fantasies and ultimately transferring it to the gross body of the human living entity. For the time being, let us set aside the first element called ether, which is not directly a part of the gross body. Let us talk about the first element called ether, which forms a part of the human living entity's gross body. We all know that we are identified in this material world by our individual gross body. An African, an American, a Latin, a Chinese, an Indian, a local, an international, a nice person, a good looking person, a well built person, all male and female are recognized by their individual gross body. This element called ether forms the first element to form this gross body of every human living entity. Because it is the first element, it plays a very important role in the constitution and reaction of the gross body of a human living entity. Because it is so, this air has been broadly divided into five parts. These five parts are known as prana, apana, vyana, samana, and udana. It entirely depends on the evolvement of a human living entity, how he or she is able to handle and monitor these five types of air in his or her human body. The art of controlling air in a gross body is known as Hatha Yoga. There is another kind of yoga called Ashtanga Yoga. Hatha Yoga or and Ashtanga Yoga help a person to control his or her air within his or her gross body. We must remember this before proceeding further. As I mentioned earlier, the first type of air is known as prana. In English, the same air is known as life throne. According to our spiritualists of yore, this kind of air is in the goodness nature of material nature or goodness mode of material nature in the life of a human living entity. According to Srimad Bhagavad Gita of Mahabharata, Lord Krishna has explained three different modes of material nature which every human living entity is subjected to. These three modes of material nature are known as first, goodness, second, passion, and the third, ignorance. In Sanskrit, they are known as sattvic, that is goodness, rajasic, that is passion, and tamasic, that is ignorance. According to our own yoga and other teachings of spiritualism, the first element air is called Sattvic when it is categorized as prana. The second category of air is known as apana. This is in the passion mode of material nature. The third is known as Vyana. This Vyana joins the first apana and the second first prana and the second apana are in the gross body of a human living entity. That is, prana is joined with apana through the third, which is known as Vyana. The fourth type of air is known as samana. Samana in English means equality. This type of air passes through the gross body of a human living entity throughout the body in a neutral fashion. Hence, it is known as samana. 95% of human beings use this particular type of air during one's life, whether that particular living entity is a male or a female. Then there is another called Udana. This Udana is an expert way of regulating the air within the human living entity. Udana in Sanskrit means the one that is used to levitate a person. Very evolved spiritual people during meditation or during the time when they are doing Hatha Yoga can levitate themselves by regulating their own air and breath. This is known as Udana. This type of air is present in every human living entity, but it is only a rare few, almost maximum 5% in this world who can regulate this type of air in one's human gross body. Once they are able to do that through Hatha Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, and other types of methods, they can either levitate into the air, float into the air, become very huge, or become very small according to their own whims, fantasies, and preferences. Please be reminded that this needs lots of practice and continuous and perpetual trials and errors. We human beings are sincerely advised by destiny, nature, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead to try to control these five types of air in our own gross body to keep a particular balance in the body and to make us live happily. Any imbalance in controlling this air may result in the ultimate demise of a human living entity. So one must be very careful while controlling or monitoring these five types of air in the gross body of a human living entity. Please be reminded that there are other subtypes of air in the body, and according to some spiritualists, there are actually 10 types of air in the body of a human living entity. But these 10 have been concised into five major types of air which are prevalent or prevailing or percolating or circulating within the gross body of a human living entity. Thanks to gravitation and the application of various natural forces, this air has the tendency to start from the cranium and go back into the end of the gross body of a human being in a natural process. All air starts at the top and blows down to the bottom of the gross body. However, if one sincerely practices to monitor this air, he or she can regulate the roots of this air in the gross body. It is thus that some people become quite huge, some quite medium, and some quite small. They may also be very well built, very athletic, very normal, or very puny according to their knowingly or unknowingly controlling their own air in their own individual gross body. This air is also caused by the intake of food of a particular human living entity and his or her capacity to digest that food in such a way that it gives him or her the maximum results. Any imbalance in that may create havoc in the body of a human living entity, especially his or her gross body. Yes, it is true that the brain transmits messages from the subtle body to be used to monitor or control the gross body and to control the air. But even this is because of the extent of evolvement of that particular human living entity. It may not be same in every human living entity. Some may prefer slim bodies, some fat, some well built, some beautiful, some smooth, some rough, and so on. It all depends on the whims, fantasies, tastes, and preferences and necessities of human living entities. They are all different, and so their usage of the air within their individual gross body is quite different. Those who do a lot of manual labor are able to remove the unnecessary air in their body. Those who are complacent and lazy may be having a deposit of a lot of unnecessary air in their gross body. That is precisely the reason why those who are active are very thin, athletic, and smart, but those who are lazy tend to become fat, corpulent, and sickly. This is because of their own nature, which in turn depends on the transmission of the vibrations of the brain of that particular person into the gross body. As I mentioned, there are different categories of people and there are different categories of the way a person would like his or her gross body to look. According to that, the body is shaped. The person may knowingly or unknowingly shape up this gross body of his or her in a particular manner according to the thoughts of the brain of that person. As it has been mentioned in English, face is the index of the mind. What you think or whatever your thoughts are shape up your gross body knowingly, unknowingly, or gradually. We all should try to control our breath plus the air within our body in such a way that we get the maximum positive results. The ultimate aim is to attain self realization, liberation from repeated life, birth, and death, and finally get delivered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We must all put all our efforts, both physical and mental, to achieve this ultimate aim. This is most important for every one of us. Kindly let me know what you think of my talk on this particular matter. Please give me your own expert opinions, thoughts, ideas, and views so that I may blend everything together for the sake of this society. Before concluding, let me remind you that I am also a published author with Amazon Kindle and paperback. I write on spiritualism, fiction, and assorted subjects. Spiritualism is my favorite subject. Before we meet in my next video, it is good morning from TSV Raghavan.